The gleaming red Ferrari sat like a wounded bird in the center of Heiress Motors' most exclusive repair bay, its engine exposed like an open heart during surgery. Victoria Chen stood beside it, her Hermes scarf perfectly knotted, her expression carved from ice. She'd inherited her father's automotive empire 6 months ago, and with it, the weight of proving herself to a world that still whispered she was just a pretty face with a platinum credit card. "I'll pay triple your usual rate," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "My father restored this car himself. It was his masterpiece, and I need it running for the charity gala next week." The mechanic didn't look up. His hands moved with surprising gentleness across the engine block, calloused fingers tracing connections that most people couldn't even see. Jake Morrison wore coveralls stained with a decade's worth of honest work, his face smudged with grease, his wedding ring leaving a pale band on his finger where he'd removed it years ago after his wife passed. "Money won't fix what's wrong with this car," he said quietly, finally meeting her eyes. They were brown and direct, without a trace of the deference she'd come to expect. "This needs time, patience, understanding." Victoria felt something catch in her throat. Those were the exact words her father used to say about his beloved Ferrari, back when she was young enough to sit on his workbench in hand, him tools she couldn't name. Back before business school, before the corporate takeover, before she'd learned that sentiment, was a luxury successful people couldn't afford. "How much time?" she demanded, though her voice had lost some of its edge. 3 weeks, maybe 4. "I have 1 week." Jake straightened, wiping his hands on a red rag that had seen better days. "Then I can't help you. I'm sorry." No one told Victoria Chen no. Not board members, not business rivals, not men who wanted her money or her name or her body. But this mechanic in his paint-stained coveralls was looking at her like she was just another person asking for the impossible. "What if I made it worth your while?" The words tumbled out before she could stop them. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "Marry someone who sees the beauty in broken things. Vicky, marry someone who knows that some repairs can't be rushed." Jake's eyebrows rose. "Ma'am, I don't—" "Marry my daughter if you fix this." Ferrari, the elderly voice, came from the office doorway. Victoria spun around to find Mrs. Chen, her grandmother, leaning on her cane with a mischievous glint in her ancient eyes. "That's what your grandfather said to me, Victoria, when I brought him my broken radio. I said I didn't need a husband, I needed a functioning radio. He fixed it anyway, and I married him 3 months later, because he taught me that some things are worth the wait." Victoria's face flushed crimson. "Grandmother, please." But Jake was laughing. It was a warm sound, unexpected in the sterile garage, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "That's some incentive," he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "But I have to ask, does your granddaughter actually want to get married? Or is this some kind of elaborate motivation technique?" "I absolutely do not," Victoria started. But her grandmother was already shuffling forward. "My granddaughter wants to remember what matters," the old woman said softly. "She's forgotten that her father didn't build an empire by rushing. He built it by caring about every detail, every person, every car that came through these doors like it was a living thing worth saving." The words hit Victoria like a physical blow. She'd spent 6 months drowning in spreadsheets and stockholder meetings, making decisions that affected thousands of employees she'd never meet, signing off on repairs she'd never witness. When had she last touched an engine? When had she last remembered why her father fell in love with cars in the first place? "I'll make you a deal," Jake said, and Victoria found herself leaning forward despite herself. "I'll work on your Ferrari every day, as many hours as I can spare. I'll treat it like it's my own, but I can't promise miracles and I won't cut corners. Your father wouldn't have wanted that." "You knew my father?" "He hired me 12 years ago. I was fresh out of prison, had a record that meant no one else would touch me. Your dad said everyone deserves a second chance if they're willing to work for it." Jake's voice carried the weight of old gratitude. "He taught me everything I know about cars, about life, really." Victoria felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crack. "What were you in prison for?" "Taking the blame for my little brother's mistake." He was 17, talented artist, had a full scholarship waiting, made one stupid decision with his friends. I was 24, already working dead-end jobs. So I said I did it. Served 4 years. He shrugged like it was nothing. But Victoria saw the cost of those years in the lines around his eyes. That's, she struggled for words, incredibly selfless. No, it's called family. Your father understood that. He used to talk about you all the time. Showed me pictures from your graduation, your first day running the company. He was so proud. But he worried you were losing yourself in the pressure to prove something. The tears came before Victoria could stop them, hot and unexpected and mortifying. She turned away, pressing her palms against the Ferrari's cool metal, feeling the ghost of her father's hands on this same surface. He'd spent hundreds of hours here, painstakingly restoring every component, and she'd barely looked at it since he died. Too painful, too much of a reminder of everything she'd lost. I don't know how to be what he was, she whispered. Jake's voice was gentle. Maybe you're not supposed to be. Maybe you're supposed to be you. Over the next week, something unexpected happened. Victoria started coming to the garage early before her meetings, watching Jake work. He explained each step, his hands moving with the same reverence her father's once had. She found herself asking questions, then picking up tools, then sliding under the car beside him, getting oil on her tailored suits and not caring. The fuel injection system is compromised, Jake explained on day 3, both of them lying on creepers beneath the Ferrari. But your father had this modified with a custom setup. It's brilliant, actually. See how he routed this line? Most people would have gone the standard way. But he understood that this engine breathes differently. Victoria saw it then, not just the mechanical ingenuity, but the love. Her father had poured his heart into this machine, just like he'd poured his heart into building a company that treated people fairly, that gave second chances, that valued quality over speed. I've been doing it all wrong, she said. No, Jake countered. You've been doing it the only way you knew how. There's a difference. On day 5, Jake's daughter showed up at the garage, a shy 8-year-old named Emma with her father's brown eyes and a drawing pad tucked under her arm. She'd lost her mother to cancer 3 years ago, and Jake was raising her alone, working long hours but never missing a school play or parent-teacher conference. Victoria watched him lift Emma onto his shoulders, watched him examine her drawings. With the same careful attention he gave the Ferrari's engine, she saw the love there, uncomplicated and fierce, and something in her chest ached with longing for that kind of simplicity. Do you like my dad? Emma asked Victoria bluntly at one point. I respect your father very much, Victoria answered carefully. That's not what I asked. Out of the mouths of babes, Victoria looked at Jake across the garage, his focus entirely on a stubborn bolt, his patience absolute. She thought about her grandmother's story, about the man who'd fixed a radio and won a heart by understanding that some things couldn't be rushed. On day 7, the Ferrari roared to life. The sound filled the garage like music, like her father's laughter, like coming home. Victoria felt tears streaming down her face as Jake shut it off, turned to her with grease on his cheek and triumph in his eyes. It's perfect, she breathed. It's what your father wanted, Jake said simply. The gala was a success. Victoria drove the Ferrari herself. And when people asked about it, she told them about Jake Morrison, the mechanic who'd taught her that quality takes time, that people deserve second chances, that some things are worth waiting for. She didn't marry him, not then. But she did offer him a partnership in the company. She did start showing up at the garage regularly, relearning the language of engines her father had taught her as a child. She did take Emma to art museums and Jake to quiet dinners where they talked about everything and nothing. 6 months later, when Jake proposed with a simple silver band and grease under his fingernails, Victoria said yes without hesitation. Not because he'd fixed a Ferrari, but because he'd helped her fix herself, taught her that humanity wasn't weakness, that kindness was its own form of strength, that sometimes the most broken things become the most beautiful when someone cares enough to give them time. At their wedding, her grandmother gave a toast. Some people marry for money, some marry for status, but the lucky ones marry someone who teaches them to see the world differently. Victoria married her mechanic, and he made her remember she was once her father's daughter. The Ferrari sat outside the reception hall, gleaming red in the sunset. Inside, Victoria and Jake danced while Emma drew pictures of happily ever after. And above it all, Victoria could almost hear her father's voice. satisfied and proud. Some repairs can't be rushed, but they're always worth the wait.